38. After 6, UNEED. These 10 things to live alone comfortably. Yunwen 2026, Nien 07 Yu 29 Jur 2006. After 60, let me tell you something plainly. If you plan to live alone and still live well, there are things nobody tells you until life forces you to learn them the hard way. I'm not speaking from theory. I'm speaking as an old man who has spent years figuring this out, piece by piece, sometimes lying on the floor, wishing I had figured it out sooner. So if you're listening to me now, take this seriously, not fearfully, but honestly, because what I'm about to share might save you more than just inconvenience. It might save your independence. Now, the first thing, and I didn't do this early enough, is learning to ask for help before you actually need it. That sounds simple, but pride gets in the way, doesn't it? You tell yourself, I'll manage. I've always managed. That's what I said when my heater started acting strange. One winter, little noises, nothing dramatic. I ignored it, then I adjusted around it, then I tolerated it, and then one morning, no hot water at all. Suddenly, it wasn't a small fix anymore. It was an emergency, expensive, inconvenient, and exhausting. And that's the pattern when you wait until something breaks completely, whether it's your home, your health, or your spirit, you lose your options. When you ask early, you stay in control. These days, I don't wait. If a step feels unstable, I fix it. If my body feels off, I call. If something is even slightly beyond my comfort, I ask someone younger, stronger, or more capable. Not because I'm weak, but because I've learned that independence isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about making sure everything gets done before it becomes a problem. Now, the second thing came from a mistake that nearly cost me more than money. It almost cost me my sense of self. Somewhere along the way, after I started living alone, I stopped spending on anything that wasn't necessary. Bills, medicine, repairs, that was it. I turned every dollar into a soldier like it had a mission and couldn't afford to relax. And slowly, without realizing it, life became maintenance. Not living, just maintaining. One day, I caught myself standing in a store holding something small I used to enjoy and putting it back because it felt unnecessary. That word, unnecessary. It can quietly drain the color out of your life. So I made a change. I gave myself permission. No, I gave myself a rule to spend a little each month on something that brings joy, not survival joy, a better cup of coffee, a comfortable blanket, something that reminds you that you're still here, still deserving of comfort, of beauty, of pleasure. You don't stop being a person just because you're older. If anything, you've earned more of those small comforts than anyone. The third thing I had to accept was that my memory, well, it wasn't what it used to be. And more importantly, it shouldn't have to be when. You live with someone, you share the burden of remembering. One reminds the other, checks the other, balances things out alone. Everything sits on one mind. And that's too much. I made mistakes, took medication twice because I forgot I already had skipped meals without realizing it, paid a bill, and then paid it again because I couldn't remember it wasn't illness. It was overload, so I started writing things down. Simple notebook date at the top, what I took, what I ate, what I handled. At first I resisted, felt like admitting decline, but I'll tell you something, honestly, it's not decline, it's strategy. We back up our phones, don't we? Why wouldn't we back up our minds? That notebook gave me clarity, reduced mistakes, and more than anything, it gave me peace. I didn't have to rely on memory alone anymore, and that's a quiet kind of freedom. Now, the fourth thing is something I wish I had before my first real scare. You need what I call a crisis folder. Not something complicated, just something visible, accessible, and complete. Mine sits in a bright, obvious place inside it. My medications, my allergies, my doctor's numbers, emergency contacts, and very clear instructions about what I want if I can't speak for myself. I didn't think about this until I had an incident where help arrived, and I realized I couldn't explain anything clearly. When you're alone, there's no one else to speak for you. That folder becomes your voice. It tells your story when you can't. And let me tell you, the people who come to help you, they don't have time to search, to guess, to figure things out slowly. The clearer you make it, the safer you are. This is one of those quiet preparations that you hope you never need. But if you do, it changes everything. The fifth thing took me the longest to accept, and I resisted it more than anything else. Because it felt like I was admitting something I didn't want to admit. A medical alert device, something you wear, something you can press, something that calls for help when you can't reach a phone, when you can't move, when you're disoriented, or worse. I told myself it was for people who had given up, that it wasn't for me. And then one day I found myself on the floor, not badly injured, but stuck, not able to get up easily, not able to reach what I needed. And I realized something in that moment. This isn't about giving up control, it's about keeping control. Because when you can call for help on your terms, you're not helpless, you're prepared. The very next day I got one, and I've worn it every day since. Not because I expect something to happen, but because I understand that if something does happen, I've already taken care of it. And when you start putting these things in place, asking for help early, allowing yourself joy, supporting your memory, preparing for emergencies, and making sure you can call for help, you begin to notice something shift. Life feels less fragile, less dependent on luck. You're not just hoping things go well, you're making sure that if they don't, you're still okay. And that's a powerful place to be. Now, the sixth thing, and this one, surprised me more than I expected, is about your home, especially the spaces you use every single day. And for me, that meant the kitchen. I didn't realize how much my environment was quietly working against me until I started paying attention to how often I felt tired, strained, or just uncomfortable doing simple things, reaching too low, bending too often, gripping things that required more strength than I had that day. It adds up, you don't notice it all at once, but by the end of the day, your body tells you the truth. So I made a decision to stop pretending I was still living in my 50-year-old body. I rearranged things, moved heavy pots where I didn't have to crouch, put everyday items at a level where my arms naturally rest, replaced tools that required strength with ones that required ease, even brought in a stool so I could sit while preparing food instead of standing there pushing through discomfort like it was some kind of test of character. And I stopped buying the cheapest version of everything at this stage in life. If you're cooking for yourself every day, those small upgrades, good tools, better ingredients, they matter. Your home should support you, not challenge you. Once I understood that, everything became smoother, lighter, more manageable. Now, the seventh thing is something that requires a level of honesty that many of us don't enjoy practicing. When you live alone, there is no one there to look at you and say you don't seem right to. There's no second pair of eyes catching what you're ignoring. That responsibility becomes yours entirely. And I'll admit, I failed at this more than once. I dismissed symptoms, told myself it was nothing, blamed things on age, on stress, on just one of those days, but the body doesn't send signals for no reason. Dizziness, discomfort, tightness, unusual fatigue, those are messages. Ignoring them isn't strength, it is risk. I learned to treat even small changes seriously, not with panic, but with respect. Call the doctor sooner rather than later, ask questions, get things checked, because when you catch something early, you still have options. When you wait, those options start disappearing. Living alone means you must become your own observer, your own early warning system. And once you accept that role, you realize it's not a burden, it's protection. The eighth thing is so simple that most people overlook it, and yet for me, it became one of the strongest anchors in my entire day. A daily ritual. Something small, consistent, and entirely yours. For me, it's the morning. Same chair, same cup, same quiet moment before the day fully begins. 10 minutes, that's all. No distractions, no rushing, no noise beyond what the morning naturally brings. And you might think 10 minutes doesn't matter. But I'll tell you, when the rest of the day feels uncertain, when loneliness creeps in, when time feels too wide and unstructured, that small ritual becomes a kind of ground beneath your feet. It tells your mind the day has begun. You are here. You're still part of this world. Without it, days can blur together with it. Each day has a beginning, a shape, a sense of presence. Find your version of that. Protect it. It's more important than it looks. Now, the ninth thing is something I didn't understand until I had already spent too much time feeling a kind of circulation I couldn't quite explain. When you live alone, there's a temptation to rely entirely on other people for connection, to wait for visits, calls, invitations, and when those don't come as often as you'd like, the silence feels heavier. I tried social groups, community gatherings, different activities, and sometimes they helped, but sometimes they made the loneliness more obvious. So I realized something important. You need a way to feel connected that doesn't depend entirely on others showing up. For me, it became writing, not for anyone else, just for me. thoughts, memories, reflections. Sometimes I write to people who are no longer here. Sometimes I write to my younger self. It keeps me engaged, keeps me thinking, keeps me part of my own story instead of just watching time pass. It doesn't matter what the activity is: writing, gardening, reading deeply, building something, learning something new. What matters is that it gives your days meaning beyond just getting through them. Meaning is not delivered, it's created. And when you create it for yourself, you're never truly empty. And now the 10th thing, the one that probably saved me the most trouble over the years, is having some kind of simple check-in system so that if something goes wrong, someone knows. Not something complicated, not something that makes you feel watched or controlled, just something reliable. For me, it's a small daily action that someone nearby can notice, a signal that says I'm okay today. And if that signal doesn't happen, they check. That's it. It takes seconds, but it closes one of the biggest risks of living alone: the risk of something happening and no one knowing for hours or longer. We like to believe we'll always be able to call, to reach out, to handle things in the moment, but life doesn't always give you that chance. Having a quiet, consistent system in place means you're not relying on luck. You're creating a safety net that doesn't interfere with your independence. It protects it. And when I look back at all of this, the adjustments, the habits, small systems, I realize none of it is complicated. None of it requires you to give up your freedom, your dignity, or your identity. In fact, it does the opposite. It preserves those things. It allows you to stay where you want to be, live how you want to live, and wake up each morning knowing that even if something goes wrong, you've already taken steps to make sure you'll be okay. That's what this stage of life has taught me: not to fear being alone, but to respect it, to prepare for it, to shape it into something that works for me instead of against me. I still wake up in my own bed. I still move through my own home. I still make my own choices, not because nothing ever goes wrong, but because I stopped leaving those moments to chance. I built a life that catches me when I need it to. And if you're listening to me right now, wherever you are in the world, at whatever stage you're in, you can do the same. You don't have to do everything today. Just start with one thing, one small change, one decision that makes your life a little safer, a little easier, a little more yours. Thank you for spending this time with me. Truly take care of yourself out there, and I'll see you again soon.